13. Things mentally strong. Parents Don't Do by Amy Morin. Introduction. The Foundation of Mental Strength in Parenting. Amy Morin, a psychotherapist and best-selling author, wrote this book after recognizing a critical gap in parenting literature. While many books focus on what parents should do, few address the equally important question of what parents should stop doing. Drawing from her clinical experience and research in psychology, Moran identified 13 common yet counterproductive parenting habits that prevent children from developing mental strength. Mental strength, as Moran defines it, consists of three core components: managing your thoughts in helpful ways, managing your emotions effectively, and behaving productively despite difficult circumstances. Mentally strong children grow into resilient adults who can handle life's inevitable challenges, setbacks, and changes. The goal isn't to shield children from discomfort, but to equip them with the psychological tools they need to thrive. This book is structured around 13 specific behaviors that well-meaning parents often engage in, usually out of love and a desire to protect their children. However, these habits ultimately undermine a child's ability to develop confidence, competence, and resilience. Let's explore each one and understand why avoiding these behaviors is crucial for raising mentally strong kids. Chapter 1. They Don't Condone a Victim Mentality. Many parents inadvertently teach their children to see themselves as helpless victims of circumstance. This happens when we make excuses for our children's behavior, blame external factors for their problems, or constantly rescue them from uncomfortable situations. A victim mentality is characterized by three beliefs: bad things happen and will keep happening. Other people or circumstances are to blame, and there's no point in trying to make things better because success is impossible. Children who develop this mindset become adults who feel powerless and entitled, expecting the world to accommodate them rather than taking personal responsibility. Moran explains that while we should validate our children's feelings and acknowledge genuine injustices, we must also teach them that they have power over their responses. The key is helping children distinguish between things they can control and things they cannot. When a child complains about an unfair teacher, for instance, a mentally strong parent acknowledges the difficulty while asking, "What can you do about this situation?" This shifts the focus from blame to empowerment. Parents can combat victim mentality by modeling personal responsibility, pointing out examples of people who overcame adversity, and praising effort and problem solving rather than just outcomes. We should help our children see obstacles as challenges to overcome rather than insurmountable barriers or evidence that the world is against them. Chapter 2. They Don't Parent. Out of guilt. Guilt is one of the most powerful emotions influencing parenting decisions, and it often leads to poor choices. Parents feel guilty about working too much, getting divorced, having another child, enforcing consequences, or simply not being perfect. This guilt drives them to overcompensate by being permissive, buying things, or failing to set appropriate boundaries. Moran identifies several forms of guilt-based parenting: the working parent who can't say no because they're away during the day, the divorced parent who becomes a Disneyland dad to compensate for the family disruption, or the parent who had a difficult childhood and vows their child will never experience hardship. The problem with guilt-based parenting is that it prioritizes a parent's emotional comfort over a child's character development. When we give in to avoid feeling guilty, we teach children that manipulation works and that they don't need to tolerate discomfort. We also model poor emotional regulation, showing them that guilt should dictate behavior rather than values and long-term goals. Mentally strong parents recognize that doing the right thing often feels uncomfortable. They distinguish between legitimate guilt that signals a need for change and unnecessary guilt that doesn't serve anyone. They remind themselves that children need parents who set limits, enforce consequences, and allow them to experience appropriate struggles, even when it would be easier to give in. The antidote to guilt-based parenting is value-based parenting. Rather than asking, "How can I avoid feeling guilty?" ask, "What does my child need to learn right now?" Make parenting decisions based on long-term goals for your child's character, rather than short-term emotional comfort for yourself. Chapter 3. They don't make their child the center of the universe. In an effort to build self-esteem and show love, many modern parents have fallen into the trap of child-centered parenting, where the child's wants, needs, and preferences dictate family life. Parents become servants, entertainment coordinators, and chauffeurs, organizing their entire existence around their children's activities and happiness. Morin argues that this approach backfires spectacularly. Children who grow up as the center of attention often develop narcissistic tendencies, lack empathy, struggle with delayed gratification, and become anxious because they haven't learned that the world doesn't revolve around them. They also miss opportunities to learn important life skills because parents do everything for them. Child-centered parenting looks like interrupting adult conversations to immediately attend to a child's non-urgent needs, declining social invitations because children prefer to stay home, allowing children to dictate family meals and activities, or feeling responsible for keeping children constantly entertained and happy. Instead, mentally strong parents create family-centered households where everyone's needs matter, including the parents. Children attend adult functions and learn appropriate behavior. Families make decisions democratically while parents retain final authority, and children contribute through chores and helping others. This doesn't mean ignoring children's needs or feelings. It means recognizing that children benefit from learning they are important members of a family system rather than its sole focus. They learn empathy by considering others' needs, patience by waiting their turn, and resilience by not always getting their way. They also develop a more realistic understanding of their place in the world, which actually reduces anxiety and increases genuine self-esteem. Chapter 4. They don't allow fear to dictate their decisions. We live in an age of heightened parental anxiety, where every decision feels fraught with danger. Parents worry about kidnappers, injuries, failure, emotional damage, food allergies, screen time, and countless other threats, real and imagined. This fear often drives us to make overly protective choices that limit our children's growth and independence. Morin distinguishes between healthy caution and debilitating fear. Healthy caution involves reasonable safety measures like car seats and teaching stranger awareness. Fear-based parenting involves preventing children from climbing trees because they might fall, refusing to let teenagers take public transportation because something might happen, or hovering constantly to prevent any possible discomfort. The problem is that children learn by taking risks, making mistakes, and experiencing natural consequences in progressively challenging environments. When we eliminate all risk, we prevent the very learning that builds competence and confidence. We also model anxiety, teaching children that the world is terrifying and that they can't handle challenges. Research shows that children today have less independence than previous generations, with corresponding increases in anxiety and decreases in problem-solving skills. Kids who never navigate conflict with peers don't learn social skills. Kids who never experience mild injuries don't learn to assess risk. Kids who never face academic struggles with minimal support don't develop perseverance. Mentally strong parents acknowledge their fears, but don't let them control decisions. They ask, what does my child need to learn, rather than what bad thing might happen. They gradually expand their children's independence in age-appropriate ways, starting with small risks like walking to a neighbor's house alone before progressing to bigger ones like taking a bus across town. This requires parents to manage their own anxiety rather than expecting children to limit their growth to make parents comfortable. It means accepting that children will get hurt, fail, and feel sad sometimes, and that these experiences are necessary for developing resilience. Chapter 5. They don't give their child power over them. Many parents inadvertently hand their power to their children, allowing kids to dictate their emotions, decisions, and household dynamics. This happens when parents constantly seek their child's approval, change rules based on a child's emotional reaction, or allow tantrums and complaints to derail parental authority. Children who have too much power become anxious because they lack the maturity to wield it wisely. They also become demanding and difficult because they've learned that emotional escalation gets results. Meanwhile, parents feel resentful, exhausted, and out of control. Power struggles often manifest in subtle ways. A parent might plan a family outing but cancel it because their child complains. A parent might set a bedtime but extend it by 30 minutes to avoid conflict. A parent might prepare dinner but make a separate meal when the child refuses to eat. Each of these interactions teaches the child that their resistance controls the parent's behavior. Morin emphasizes that children need parents to be in charge. This doesn't mean being authoritarian or dismissing children's input, but it does mean maintaining clear boundaries about who makes final decisions. Mentally strong parents listen to their children's preferences and consider their feelings, but they don't allow those feelings to dictate outcomes when parents know what's best. The key is separating your emotions from your child's emotions. When a child is upset about a rule, a mentally strong parent can acknowledge the feeling without changing the rule. They might say, "I know you're disappointed we can't get ice cream today," without adding, "So I guess we'll get ice cream." They stay calm when children are dysregulated, providing a model of emotional stability. Parents reclaim their power by making clear decisions aligned with their values, following through consistently despite protest, and recognizing that a child's temporary unhappiness with a rule doesn't mean the rule is wrong. They also model healthy power dynamics by treating children respectfully while maintaining appropriate authority. Shakshas. Chapter 6. They don't expect perfection. In an increasingly competitive world, many parents push their children toward perfection, whether in academics, athletics, appearance, or behavior. They believe that excellence is the key to success and happiness, so they correct every mistake, push for higher achievement, and communicate that anything less than the best isn't good enough. This approach creates anxious, stressed children who fear failure and tie their self-worth to achievement. It also robs them of important learning opportunities because mistakes are how we grow. Children who aren't allowed to fail become adults who avoid challenges, struggle with resilience, and may develop anxiety, depression, or perfectionism. Morin explains that perfectionism is different from healthy striving. Healthy strivers set high, but realistic, goals, enjoy the process, and recover from setbacks. Perfectionists set impossibly high standards, focus only on outcomes, and feel devastated by anything less than perfect results. Parents create perfectionists by criticizing mistakes, emphasizing grades and rankings over learning, or modeling their own unhealthy perfectionism. Mentally strong parents encourage excellence while accepting imperfection. They praise effort and improvement rather than just outcomes. When a child brings home a test with a B grade, they might ask, "What did you learn?" rather than, Why didn't you get an A? They also allow natural consequences to teach lessons rather than rescuing children from every mistake. Perhaps most importantly, these parents model self-compassion and healthy self-talk about their own imperfections. When they make mistakes, they acknowledge them, make amends if necessary, and move forward without excessive self-criticism. This teaches children that mistakes are part of being human, not evidence of inadequacy. Parents can combat perfectionism by celebrating mistakes as learning opportunities, sharing stories of successful people who failed repeatedly, and explicitly stating that they love and value their child regardless of achievement. They should also examine whether their own need for a perfect child is driving their expectations. Chapter 7. They don't let their child avoid responsibility. Taking responsibility is essential for developing maturity, competence, and self-respect. Yet many parents inadvertently prevent their children from being responsible by making excuses for them, doing tasks that children should do themselves, or protecting them from the consequences of irresponsible behavior. This often stems from good intentions. Parents don't want their children to experience failure or judgment, so they bring forgotten homework to school, clean their rooms for them, or blame the teacher when grades are poor. But each time we rescue children from the consequences of their irresponsibility, we teach them that someone else will always fix their problems. Morin identifies several ways children avoid responsibility: blaming others for their mistakes, making excuses for poor behavior or performance, expecting parents to manage tasks they're capable of handling, and failing to complete commitments without consequences. When parents allow these patterns, children don't develop the skills needed for adult life. Mentally strong parents assign age-appropriate responsibilities and hold children accountable for completing them. A preschooler might be responsible for putting toys away, while a teenager might be responsible for managing their own homework schedule and suffering the consequences if they don't. Parents provide support and teaching, but don't do for children what children can do for themselves. These parents also insist that children take responsibility for mistakes and make amends. If a child breaks a neighbor's window, they should apologize and contribute to the replacement cost from their allowance. If they're rude to a teacher, they should write an apology note. This teaches that actions have consequences and that they have the power to make things right. Taking responsibility also means contributing to the household. Children who do chores learn that families function through mutual contribution, develop practical skills, and gain self-efficacy from being helpful. Research shows that children who do chores have higher self-esteem and better life outcomes, yet fewer children today have regular responsibilities at home compared to previous generations. Chapter 8. They don't prevent their child from making mistakes. Mistakes are essential for learning, yet many parents work overtime to prevent them. They micromanage children's homework, intervene in social conflicts before children can resolve them independently, and eliminate any possibility of failure through constant supervision and correction. This helicopter parenting approach seems loving, but actually communicates to children that parents don't believe they're capable of handling challenges. It deprives children of opportunities to develop problem-solving skills, resilience, and confidence. It also creates dependency, where children constantly look to parents for solutions rather than trusting their own judgment. Morin explains that children learn far more from mistakes than from successes. A child who forgets their lunch and feels hungry learns to check their backpack before leaving. A child who procrastinates on a project and has to stay up late learns time management. A child who uses unkind words and loses a friend learns about the impact of their behavior. When parents prevent these mistakes, they prevent the learning. Of course, parents should intervene to prevent serious harm. Mentally strong parents don't allow children to make mistakes that could cause significant physical injury, break the law, or create permanent negative consequences. But they distinguish between these serious issues and the minor mistakes that provide valuable lessons. The key is allowing natural consequences to teach whenever safe and appropriate. Instead of nagging children to do homework, let them experience a poor grade or teacher correction. Instead of reminding them repeatedly about responsibilities, let them face the consequence of forgetting. Instead of solving every social problem, let them navigate conflicts and sometimes experience social disappointment. When children do make mistakes, mentally strong parents respond with empathy and curiosity rather than, "I told you so." They help children reflect on what happened and what they might do differently next time. But they don't rescue them from the discomfort. This develops both the skills and the confidence children need to handle increasingly complex challenges. Chapter 9. They don't confuse discipline with punishment. Many parents struggle with discipline, either being too harsh or too permissive. Morin clarifies that discipline and punishment are fundamentally different. Punishment is about making a child suffer for wrongdoing, often out of parental frustration. Discipline is about teaching children to make better choices in the future. Effective discipline has several characteristics. It's proactive rather than reactive, focused on teaching rather than revenge, proportionate to the infraction, and administered calmly rather than in anger. Punishment, by contrast, is often harsh, inconsistent, delivered in anger, and focused on pain rather than learning. Harsh punishment creates fear, resentment, and sneakiness rather than internalized values. Children punished severely may comply out of fear, but don't develop their own moral compass. They also learn that might makes right and may become aggressive themselves. Conversely, permissiveness creates entitled children who don't respect boundaries or understand that actions have consequences. Mentally strong parents use discipline strategies that teach natural consequences when safe, logical consequences that relate to the misbehavior, removing privileges temporarily, and timeouts for young children to calm down. They also explain the reasoning behind rules age appropriately and involve children in problem solving about how to do better. For example, if a child mistreats a toy, the logical consequence might be losing access to that toy for a period. If they're rude to a sibling, they might need to do something kind to make amends. If they violate curfew, they might lose the privilege of going out next weekend. These consequences teach while preserving the parent-child relationship. Effective discipline also requires consistency. Children need to know that rules and consequences are predictable, not dependent on parental mood. This means parents must manage their own emotions and deliver consequences calmly, even when frustrated. It also means following through every time, which requires more effort than sporadic enforcement, but yields much better results. Chapter 10. They don't take shortcuts to avoid discomfort. Modern life offers countless shortcuts that let parents avoid temporary discomfort, giving children phones to keep them quiet in restaurants, buying cooperation with treats or toys, completing tasks for children because it's faster, or avoiding difficult conversations because they're awkward. While these shortcuts provide immediate relief, they create long-term problems. Morin explains that parenting is inherently uncomfortable. Saying no triggers tantrums. Teaching new skills requires patience. Enforcing consequences invites conflict. Having honest conversations about difficult topics is awkward. But avoiding this discomfort means children don't learn essential skills and parents don't fulfill their responsibilities. Shortcuts teach children problematic lessons. That discomfort should always be avoided that they can get what they want through manipulation, that they don't need to develop skills or patience, and that parents don't mean what they say. These lessons create entitled, unskilled children who struggle with frustration, tolerance, and delayed gratification. Common shortcuts include using screens to pacify children instead of teaching them to manage boredom, buying things to stop whining instead of teaching them to accept no, doing homework for children instead of teaching them to persevere through difficulty, and avoiding conversations about topics like sex, death, or money because they're uncomfortable. Mentally strong parents embrace discomfort in service of long-term goals. They tolerate tantrums while maintaining boundaries. They invest time in teaching skills even when it's slower than doing it themselves. They have difficult conversations even when awkward. They accept that children will sometimes be unhappy with them. This doesn't mean making things unnecessarily difficult or never offering help. It means distinguishing between supportive assistance and enabling shortcuts. A parent might sit with a frustrated child working on homework, offering encouragement and occasional guidance, but not completing the assignment for them. They provide a developmentally appropriate level of support while still requiring the child to struggle productively. Chapter 11. They don't lose sight of their values. In the chaos of daily parenting, it's easy to lose sight of long-term values and make decisions based on immediate pressures. Parents give in to requests that contradict their values because they're tired. Let children participate in activities that don't align with family priorities because everyone else is doing it, or make choices based on social pressure rather than what they truly believe is best. Morin emphasizes that values provide the compass for parenting decisions. When you're clear about what matters most, whether that's kindness, education, faith, creativity, or service, you can evaluate choices based on whether they support or undermine those values. Without this clarity, parenting becomes reactive and inconsistent. Parents lose sight of values when they prioritize short-term peace over long-term character development, make decisions based on what other parents are doing rather than what they believe is right, focus exclusively on achievement while neglecting character, or fail to align their actions with their stated beliefs. For example, parents who value education might inadvertently undermine it by doing children's homework for them. Parents who value kindness might fail to address their child's bullying behavior because it's uncomfortable. Parents who value family time might overschedule children in activities that keep the family constantly separated. Mentally strong parents clarify their top values and use them to guide decisions. When facing a choice, they ask, "Does this align with what we believe is important?" They also recognize that their children are watching their actions more than hearing their words, so they model the values they want to instill. This might mean making countercultural choices like limiting screens when other families don't, requiring family dinners when it's inconvenient, or having children volunteer regularly even when they'd rather not. It means being willing to say, "I know other families do it differently, but this is what we believe is right for our family." Values-based parenting also provides children with a stable framework for making their own decisions as they mature. Children who understand their family's values can use them as a guide when facing peer pressure, ethical dilemmas, or difficult choices. Chapter 12. They don't prevent their child from feeling pain. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of mentally strong parenting is allowing children to experience emotional pain. Parents instinctively want to protect children from sadness, disappointment, rejection, and loss. We rush to fix problems, distract from difficult feelings, or shield them from experiences that might cause hurt. But pain is an inevitable part of life and an essential teacher. Children who never experience disappointment don't develop resilience. Children whose parents fix every friendship problem don't learn social skills. Children protected from all loss don't learn to grieve and recover. By eliminating pain, we eliminate the opportunity to build emotional strength. Morin distinguishes between necessary pain and unnecessary pain. Necessary pain includes natural consequences of choices, social disappointments like not making the team, academic struggles, loss of relationships, and appropriate consequences for behavior. Unnecessary pain includes bullying, abuse, neglect, or trauma, which parents should absolutely prevent. When children experience necessary pain, mentally strong parents provide comfort without rescue. If a child doesn't make the soccer team, the parent acknowledges the disappointment, validates the feelings, and supports them through the sadness, but doesn't call the coach to demand another tryout or immediately sign them up for a different sport to avoid the pain. They sit with the child in discomfort, teaching them that painful feelings are temporary and manageable. This is incredibly difficult because parents feel their children's pain acutely. It requires managing your own distress to be present for theirs. It means resisting the urge to distract, minimize, or immediately solve. It involves trusting that children have the capacity to handle hard feelings with support. These experiences teach crucial lessons: that pain is temporary, that they can survive difficult emotions, that support is available without rescue, and that setbacks can lead to growth. Children learn that they're strong enough to handle life's challenges, which builds genuine confidence and resilience that will serve them throughout life. Chapter 13. They don't feel responsible for their child's emotions. Many parents believe it's their job to keep their children happy, leading them to take excessive responsibility for their child's emotional state. When children are sad, angry, or anxious, these parents immediately try to fix the feeling, believing that good parents should prevent negative emotions. This approach creates multiple problems. First, it's impossible to control another person's emotions, so parents set themselves up for failure and exhaustion. Second, it teaches children that negative emotions are dangerous and must be eliminated immediately rather than managed. Third, it prevents children from developing emotional regulation skills because parents are doing the regulating for them. Morin explains that emotions are information, not emergencies. All feelings, including uncomfortable ones, serve important purposes. Sadness helps us process loss. Anger signals boundary violations. Anxiety alerts us to potential threats. Fear keeps us safe. When we constantly eliminate these emotions, we deprive children of their guidance system. Parents who feel responsible for their child's emotions engage in emotional rescuing, immediately offering solutions when children are upset, feeling guilty when children are unhappy, changing rules or decisions to improve a child's mood, or becoming anxious themselves when children experience negative emotions. Mentally strong parents distinguish between supporting children through emotions and taking responsibility for those emotions. They validate feelings without fixing them. I can see you're really disappointed about the party being cancelled. That makes sense. What would help you feel a little better right now? Versus, don't be sad. Let's plan something even better. They also teach children to identify, understand, and manage their emotions through modeling and coaching. When a parent has a difficult day, they might say, "I'm feeling frustrated right now, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths to calm down." This demonstrates emotional awareness and regulation in action. Teaching emotional skills includes naming emotions accurately, identifying physical sensations associated with feelings, recognizing that feelings come and go, understanding that you can feel multiple emotions simultaneously, and learning strategies to manage intense emotions like breathing, movement, talking, or temporary distraction. Parents should resist the urge to immediately solve emotional problems. Instead, be present, listen, validate, and support children in finding their own solutions. This builds emotional competence and resilience, preparing children for adult life where emotions are constant companions that need to be managed rather than eliminated. Conclusion. Building mental strength takes time. Raising mentally strong children is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires parents to resist short-term fixes in favor of long-term character development. It means tolerating your own discomfort and your child's disappointment in service of helping them become resilient, responsible, capable adults. Amy Morin emphasizes that nobody does this perfectly. All parents slip into these 13 habits sometimes, particularly when stressed, tired, or overwhelmed. The goal isn't perfection, but awareness and gradual improvement. When you notice yourself condoning victim mentality, parenting from guilt, or taking shortcuts to avoid discomfort, you can pause, reflect, and make a different choice. The most powerful tool parents have is self-awareness. Pay attention to your patterns, triggers, and default responses. Notice when fear drives your decisions, or when you're prioritizing your emotional comfort over your child's growth. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward changing them. Remember that building mental strength in your children starts with building it in yourself. If you struggle with anxiety, model seeking help and using coping strategies. If you battle perfectionism, show yourself compassion and let your children see you handle mistakes gracefully. If you have difficulty with emotions, work on developing your own emotional intelligence. The good news is that it's never too late to start. Whether your children are toddlers or teenagers, you can begin implementing these principles today. Children are remarkably resilient and responsive to positive changes in parenting approaches. Start with one area where you most struggle, make small changes, and build from there. Mentally strong parenting also means building a support system. Connect with other parents who share your values, seek professional help when needed, and give yourself permission to prioritize your own well-being. You cannot give what you don't have, so taking care of yourself is essential to taking care of your children. Finally, trust the process. The benefits of mentally strong parenting aren't always immediately visible. A child who experiences the natural consequence of forgetting their homework might seem upset in the moment, but they're learning responsibility. A child who doesn't make the team and isn't rescued from the disappointment might seem sad, but they're building resilience. These investments in character development pay dividends throughout life. By avoiding these 13 habits, you're giving your children an extraordinary gift: the mental strength to handle whatever challenges life brings, the resilience to bounce back from setbacks, the emotional intelligence to manage difficult feelings, the confidence to take appropriate risks, and the character to become their best selves. That's the ultimate goal of parenting, and it's well worth the discomfort along the way.